Alright, so first we're going to start off with the Neomorph. Okay, so opinions on Alien Covenant aside, you know, the more I watch that movie, the more I realize the flaws that it has, besides the horrible acting in some of the scenes. So anyways, that's not important right now. We're here to talk about the Neomorph from NECA, and as you can see here, the guy is pretty weird looking. Now, I know it wasn't exactly the same model they used for the movie. They did go for like a CG style monster. But this one is pretty cool, and I would have to say it's close to being accurate to the movie. So, first we're going to take a look at the articulation, accessories, and then we're going to go into the details. So first with the articulation, we have some head movement that you can use to look up and down, side to side. You can look left and right. Now, one thing I noticed about these heads right off the bat is that they're so hard to move up and down right out of the box. I actually had to heat these up with really hot water in order to get them to move. I have no idea why it was such a pain in the ass to get them to move, but arms can move out to the sides, up and down. There's a double joint at the elbow here, but definitely be careful with this because this guy's joints are pretty small. There is some wrist movement as well. Once again, those joints are really small, so if you put too much stress on them, they're probably gonna break. I managed to get this one to bend a little better than the other one. So, like, look at my nails, aren't they pretty? Here at the abdominal area, we have some movement here. Here, we get some in and out leg movement here at the waist. Move up and down, of course. A bend at the knee, double joint, so you get some nice bend there for some crawling poses. And of course, you have some up and down movement at the foot, and actually get some articulation on the toes as well. So that's always nice. You know, you can rock this side to side, spin it around if you so desire. And of course, we have the standard NECA bendy wire for the tail. Now, I've heard complaints from the commenters that their tail ended up breaking real easily, and I can see that being the case. It's a pretty thin tail, it's a pretty frail figure, so I would definitely suggest you use caution when playing around with these guys because you can easily break this guy if you're not careful enough. So in terms of accessories, here we have the back burster right here. As you can see, you got the two spikes coming out of its back, and it's nicely painted with some blood covering it. Now, I would have preferred if the blood was a bit of a deeper red. However, it gets the job done, and it does a pretty good job. And the detail on this guy is pretty nice. Now, in terms of articulation, you know, the tail's a nice rubbery plastic, but it doesn't have any bendy wire in it. It's much too small for that. But you do get some leg movement here. However, being that this guy came out of the package warped, I still have a really hard time trying to get this guy to stand. It's not even worth it anymore. So you get some movement there. The arms feel like they're locked in place, and so is the head, so you can't really do much with this guy. It's more like a little prop. However, the detail on him is pretty nice. Get a look at that. Next accessory is an alternate head for the Neomorph with the opened mouth. And I do prefer this head a lot more in terms of look to the standard closed mouth. It actually comes with the open mouth already out of the packaging on the figure, and the alternate head is the closed mouth one that I showed you before. However, I must say the detail on this face is really, really nicely done. And the paint wash, some nice white dry brushing, along with some pinkish white skin tones used there, some pink in the mouth, nice detail on the teeth and the inner tongue. This guy's really, really ugly. You get some nice ridges underneath the head crest. So really cool accessory. I'm glad they threw this in here. However, I'm thinking about picking up another one just to have one with the closed mouth and the open mouth to display on my shelf. I'm still debating on that. Maybe get back to that later. But once again, one of the complaints that I have here is with the head is that it's just this ball joint. For some reason, it has to be the paint, because there was a lot of paint collected here where it's supposed to actually pivot and move. Unfortunately, this joint just does not want to work. The paint and the materials plus the tightness is what's causing that. You know, at least it's not going to break. I put a lot of stress on this joint and it hasn't broken yet, so that's always a good sign. However, it does make moving this head up and down a bit of a pain in the ass. So when we look at the figure itself, here we have him with the closed mouth. As you can see on the head, you get some nice gray moving in towards the mouth, along with, once again, the white mixed with some of that pink in there to give this guy a really fleshy, disgusting look. Definitely reminiscent of the Beluga morph. The spines on the back are made of a nice soft rubber material. And as we move down the back, you get a nice little spike here, a little harder. Nice rubber. All the way down to the tail, which is more of that similar paint scheme. You get a nice little blade at the tip there. Moving around to the front of the figure, you get some really nice detail on the chest, as well as the really flat stomach. Take a look at the arms. Nothing too special or crazy going on here in terms of paint. We get these really nice long hands. Very creepy. As you move down to the waist, however, there's one of my biggest issues with this guy is these ball joints here leading to the legs are actually very visible, and it just looks nasty, honestly. It just so sometimes I just find myself doing this just to cover it up, but it just doesn't look right either way. It's very distracting if you look too close at the figure. It's very unfortunate that it's like that. I wish it wasn't. However, what can you do, really? Down to the legs. And down to the nicely detailed feet with the bendable toes and the peg holes underneath the feet. So overall, really nicely detailed figure. Nothing too crazy going on here. I feel it matches the source material pretty well in terms of paint scheme, the colors. The ball joints are, like I said, a bit fragile, especially around the elbows. And definitely be careful with the tails, bendy wire. You don't want to stress that too much. It does feel a bit weak. And once again, the pain in the ass articulation when it comes to moving the head up and down. Use a lot of hot water for that, but just be careful with that. You don't want to screw that up. If you want to change the head out, all you have to do is just pop that guy out. Oh god, that was painful. So definitely be careful with that. You might want to apply some hot water to the figure once again when you're doing this. It's a pain. There you go. Pop it in there and you should be good to go. So yeah, my verdict on the Neomorph. It's nice to have another alien creature figure from the series, from NECA. I would definitely suggest you pick this guy up if you're a fan of the design, of course. If you're not a big fan of the new movie or the actual Neomorph itself, give it a pass. Me, on the other hand, I'm thinking about picking up another one just so I can have one with a closed mouth and open mouth on my shelf. Now, in terms of design, it's pretty standard, not too tall of a figure. It's pretty frail as well, so definitely be easy with it. However, I was definitely expecting it to be a bit taller, especially compared to the Xenomorph from the movie, or Protomorph, whatever you want to call it. It's really short by comparison. So I don't know if that was intentional or not. I would definitely suggest you guys maybe hit this one up and check it out. Okay, so on to the creature pack from the Alien Covenant line. Every creature in the movie is basically accounted for, and it's really cool that they included this as well. So what we have here is 2 facehuggers, 2 eggs, 1 open, 1 closed, the toddler Neomorph, and the fully grown chestburster. So let's get into it with the smallest first. So first things first, let's take a look at the chestburster here. It's a static piece. It's very, very small, very thin, very hard to even stand up simply because the actual plastic, as you can see on the legs, are warped. I'm not gonna even bother trying to hot water this guy. Just leave it as it is. Its tail is like very thin plastic, so you can kind of move it around. However, it just moves back, just goes back in place. There's no articulation whatsoever on this guy. However, the detail is actually pretty impressive when you take a closer look at it. Get some nice detail on the face. Definitely see where the mouth goes. The ribbing on the chest all the way down to the waist and the feet. Like I said, it's a nicely detailed little piece. However, it's very insignificant in the grand scheme of things and definitely the worst part of the set. The eggs, on the other hand, are really cool. Now you can see you get some nice dark green mixed with some blacks and some metallic blue on the egg. The base is really small, however, so you're easily going to tip these guys over if you're not careful on your shelf. And this is the closed one. It definitely gives off the look of a grenade. I was tempted to toss this across the room many times. Get that same metallic blue mixed with the dark forest green and grays here on the open one. Same story, only difference is the nice looking top. The weird top, which gives me the impression of petals from a wild plant. Take a look at the interior. You get some dark red, nice blood color. I actually wish they used this paint for the blood on the Neomorphs as opposed to the one they did use. And you get some weird pink veins in there that don't look too convincing, honestly. I feel that they're a bit overdone and a bit too in your face. Would have liked it if they were a bit more subtle, but you know, it is what it is. It's an open egg and it's pretty cool. So, moving on to those really nasty looking face huggers. These guys are not the same sculpt they've used before. These are definitely unique to the Covenant line. And you can see their legs are a lot longer and definitely a bit more spiky and spindly, which is pretty cool if you ask me. I'm glad they didn't just reuse the previous sculpts they had. However, there's not much difference here in terms of sculpts from each other. However, I do notice that one has a brighter paint scheme than the other. And it's made of a harder plastic than the face huggers they've used in the past. So definitely go easy with the legs on these guys. You don't want to break them or bend them too much. However, the tail is on the bendy wire, and like I said, since it's a harder plastic, unfortunately, it's definitely a bit tougher to get those tails to bend. However, they do bend, so just be gentle with them and don't stress them too much because, like I said, harder plastic might cause the bendy wire to actually snap in there. And on the mouth of the face hugger, you get some really nasty looking detail in there, but it's really cool looking and it does get the job done. And the final piece, and arguably the coolest in the set, is the toddler Neomorph. Here you can see it's got this nice grayish white paint scheme with that red. Once again, that very bright red used for the blood. However, it looks definitely more convincing here considering how glossy it looks. And overall, I definitely like the look on this guy. The detail is pretty good. Get a nice look at the face, the mouth. Get the folds in the skin, kind of where the ears would be, and the eyes, if it had any. Gets nice look at the back. You get some soft rubber plastic here used for the spines. And you can move the arms up and down. Definitely be careful with the arms, however. They will pop out if you're not careful with them. In terms of the legs, you do get some articulation here, up and down. You could spread them out just a bit. And I actually didn't realize this until I saw another video review for these legs, but the knees, a very small joint that allows the knees to bend. So definitely be careful with that. I actually had to use hot water in order to get mine to bend, and I had to scratch away at some of the paint that ended up getting on that joint. I had to scrape it away with my nail just to get it to move. So definitely be careful with that, but once you get them to bend once, you shouldn't have a problem getting the bend again. And the tail is on a bendy wire, so that's really cool, and it's pretty sweet how you can actually articulate this fella. Only to a certain degree, however, it's all you really need out of this guy. It's really cool that it actually comes with a bendy wire, and the head does look up and down, kind of tilt it side to side, and make it look from left to right. So if you want to kind of stand this guy up on its hind legs, you kind of can. Just definitely have to work the leg joints a bit just to get it to work. So overall, if you have facehuggers and eggs already, you really don't need to pick these up unless you really want the taller Neomorph and the honestly useless chestburster. Now last but not least, we have the Xenomorph, and this is the guy I want to spend the most time talking about simply because it is the most lucrative in this series. It's a brand new, quote-unquote brand new sculpt for the Alien Covenant line, and it's a very unique looking Xenomorph. So we're gonna get down into the nitty-gritty and I'll show you exactly why. Arms move out a little bit. They bend at the elbow. You get a nice wrist movement going on there. You get some nice spinning action on the upper waist. The head is allowed to look down as well as move back. Just be careful with these back dorsal tubes here. They do kind of get in the way, but not as much as the big chap or the alien warriors that used to have that weird spine thing coming out of the back of the neck that would prevent it from looking back too much. It's more reminiscent of the runner, if you ask me, in many ways, and I'll get into that later. However, the legs do move up and down. You can actually spread them out quite a bit. They do swivel here. You might need to... You get a double ball joint at the knee. Get some swivel going on here. Some swivel action on the foot. Move it up and down ever so slightly, as well as some toe articulation, which is always nice. And you do get some peg holes on the bottom of those toes. And of course, the standard NECA bendy wire for the tail of the alien. One thing I'm going to note off the bat is that these dorsal tubes unfortunately do not articulate at all. They're made of a softer plastic. However, they don't articulate at all. I've tried with these guys and they don't move in and out from side to side. Just like that promotional shot from the movie where the alien's just on top of the cockpit of the landing craft and the spines are kind of spread out. You can kind of get that look going here if you bend them enough and maybe wet them with some hot water or a hot blow dryer. However, they're not going to stay that way. They're going to go back into place. Definitely go easy on them. You don't want to put too much stress on them. As I said before, they do seem like they're prone to snapping. It's unfortunate they didn't have any articulation or bendy wire in them. That would have been cool. However, not the case here. The mouth, of course, opens. However, I do want to note that the mouth doesn't seem to fully close by design. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not. However, at least mine doesn't want to close all the way simply because the inner mouth is in the way. However, I do notice that once it opens, it does seem to open by itself sometimes, and that the joint in the mouth and jaw is kind of weak after fiddling around with it for too long. The inner mouth, now this one's really cool. Check this out. There you go. That has to be one of the longest inner mouths in any alien figure I've ever owned. I think it is the longest next to the AVP Warriors. It's just ridiculously long. However, it does protrude properly, and it's very intimidating. You don't have to pull it out all the way if you don't want. You can keep it kind of like this. I think it looks a little better than having it all the way. However, when you push it back in, it does snap right back in there and stays put. One of the biggest issues I've had with the previous aliens was that once that inner mouth is loose, it just kind of falls out of the mouth and droops out whenever the mouth is open. So you kind of have to keep the mouth closed with the previous ones in the series. However, this guy is alright. You can actually have the mouth open without the inner mouth drooping out. So I'm glad they made that adjustment, and I hope they keep it that way. And yes, the head does move left and right. You can't tilt it from side to side, unfortunately, and you are limited by these tubes here on the shoulders. The dome is a nice brown, however it's transparent. You do get to see some of the details on the inner skull of this Xenomorph, or Protomorph if you want to call it that way and you so desire. It's all up to you. However, I'll just call it the Xenomorph simply because that's what it says on the packaging. And when you look at from the front, you actually can see the eye holes in the inner skull, which is very, very intimidating. On the side of the head, you get some more of that standard biomechanical detail, and the inner and on the mouth, you get a little bit of transparent plastic there. Let's pull out the inner mouth so I can show you the detail on that. Get some nice detail on the inner mouth as well. And the paint scheme, before I go any further, is very interesting. It's got a lot of browns, grays, and blacks. It's mainly what the figure is. Definitely a lot more brown and gray with the blacks for a lot of the recessed parts. And it does remind me of the runner alien in many ways. As we move down to the shoulders, you can see some more of that tubing there on the shoulders, as well as the back. Those dorsal tubes are the thinnest that we've ever actually seen them. As we move down to the rib cage, you start to see a lot of the differences from the standard big chap. This alien definitely has a more organic look to it, as opposed to the biomechanical detail that was on the warriors. You get that soft rubber plastic for this area, which is nice. But once again, the paint job is exquisite. Absolutely exquisite on this guy. Love the grays. Black recessed parts mixed with the browns definitely makes this alien stand out quite a bit. And once again, like I said, very reminiscent to the runner. I love the runner's design, especially NECA's take on the guy. And I feel that they took what worked with the runner and used a lot of that to design this guy. Here on the leg, you get a nice look with that weird gray vein. I was always intrigued by the more organic looking Xenomorphs from Resurrection as well as AVP. Get a nice look at the detail of the teeth. Nice metallic silver and black used for that. And yeah, overall, a very organic looking alien. On the back of the rib cage, get some more of that gray paint. The back of the waist, all the way down to the tail of the Xenomorph. So in the entire line, I would definitely say, obviously, the Protomorph or Xenomorph is the best in the line and definitely worth picking up. In terms of complaints, I really don't have any besides the dorsal tubes not being able to articulate like they did in the movie, and the legs do become a bit weak after constantly bending them, so it may be a bit hard to stand this guy up. However, use the tail in conjunction with the leg joints and you should be able to pull this guy off in some really cool poses. So Once again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this review on the entire Alien Covenant line. It's done. We did it. Thank you, NECA, for delivering these guys to us. And, well, I'll see you all in the next review.